So chapter 4 is about systems of linear equations. So what do I mean by a system of equations? And what do I mean by a solution to that? So suppose I have the equations here. And what I want, i.e. the solution, is going to be some x and y, so that when I plug them in to the original equations, they satisfy both equations. Why isn't that not the solution I want it to be? Anyways, we'll just I'll write it this way, x1, y1. So throughout this chapter, we're going to discuss a variety of different methods that we can use to solve this. So we'll start with talking about graphing, and then we'll talk about substitution. We'll talk about elimination. And then we're going to talk about something called a matrix, not like the movie The Matrix, and some methods for solving systems that we can use using matrix methods.
Any other juniors who need picture retakes? Any other juniors and any seniors who need picture retakes? Angelina Suave and Kyle Hader to the media center, please.
So these are going to be the methods that we're going to talk about. And when we're done talking about those methods, we're going to talk about some applications, some places where we can use this technique to solve specific kinds of problems. So one application, we can find the standard form equation for a quadratic given 3 points. And then specifically we can talk about story problems. What else? Or we can talk about area of a triangle. That's a problem we can solve this way. So we'll look at some applications. Those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head. But first we have to come up with some methods for solving these systems. Okay with this? So let's talk about graphing here to start. And let's return to this example that I cited above. So if I wanted to graph these, what I'm going to do is I'm going to graph both of these equations on the same xy axis, and I'm going to look for where they intersect. And that place where they intersect is going to be my solution. Okay with that plan? So what's the problem with this method right away? You're going to have to be neat, right? If we're doing this by hand, like you're going to have to be really kind of precise about how you're drawing your graphs, because sloppy is going to get you into trouble, right? So if I wanted to graph something like x plus y equals 5, what would we probably want to do first? I probably want to get the y by itself, so I can write this like a slope-intercept equation, right? So I'll just subtract x from both sides. And in the second equation, I'd have to subtract 2x from both sides and then divide by a -1. So I skipped showing that. Is everybody okay with what I did there, though? Basically just got the y's by themselves, right? Not a big deal. Okay. So what I'll do then is I'm going to graph each of these two. How many points do I need to graph a line? Just 2, right? If I'm going for neatness, should I pick the 2 points right next to each other or kind of far apart? Which one's going to give me a better result? Kind of far apart, right? It's really hard to, if you make a little mistake where your lines are like, your points are like this close together, you can have a big difference than if your points are like this far from each other. Much more likely to get a decent picture out of that. So from just a purely mechanical standpoint of like my artistic ability, I'm going to try to pick my x's so they're kind of far apart. So maybe for the first one, I'm going to pick the x's 0 and 5. Those are kind of far apart. Does it really matter? No. Yes, Grace? Huh? And then I divided by a -1 to get the y by itself. So yes, it was -2x, and then I divided both sides by -1. So once I've picked my x's, how do I find my y's? Plug those x's back in, right? So when I plug it in, I get 5 and then 0. I'm going to do something similar over here. I'm going to pick 0 and 5. So when I do that, I get -10 and then 0. So I'm going to draw this one with blue and this one in green. So here I have 0, 5, and then 5, 0. So there's my one equation. And then I have 0, -10, and then 5, 0. So there's my second equation. So here's my solution that I can see is at 5, 0. Is everybody okay with that idea? Okay. That's probably all we have time for today. That was a great stopping point. We'll pick up talking about some more solving system techniques next time we have lecture. Remember, what day is the test? Thursday. Where's the information about the test? Power School calendar. Make sure you try the review. Make sure you do problems for practice.